To She Talks, a soul healing essentials podcast. I'm your host, Allie, the spiritual architect, and today we're going to talk about the sacral chakra. Such a long awaited episode. I've got Natalie joining me today, and Natalie, if you remember, has joined us in the past where we talked about, gosh, what was the name of the episode? I'm looking it up right now. Women's wellness with Natalie. So I just thought this was such an amazing topic to cover with her. So welcome, Natalie.
Hi.
So nice to have you back.
Thanks.
So before we get started, do you want to kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, how people can reach you, what you do, all that stuff?
Yeah. So I am a chiropractor. I have an office in Long Beach, Full Circle Chiropractic. I specialize in treating pregnant women, children, but treat and care for everybody in between. So not just exclusively those populations of people. And I've been doing it for 13 years and I love it.
And I feel like I met you when you were just starting out. I love
totally.
it. So Natalie definitely has been taking care of my spine for years and years now. So I'm just so grateful to have you today and to join me in this beautiful topic, which just seems right up your alley.
Yes.
So I guess first we should establish sacral chakra. So it's located at the navel, and it's generally associated with the color orange, and it's usually called the second chakra, but I think I've mentioned this in my previous episodes. I'm covering the chakras the way I like to connect with my chakras, which is crown down versus root up. And yeah, it just feels good to me. So that's what I've done here. But it's associated with the color orange, and the sacral chakra energy is directly related to and is nurtured by the root chakra. So that's just kind of worth mentioning. Often with some of these chakras, if the one, quote unquote, previously to it or adjacent to it is, I think the better word, is kind of out of alignment, if you can visualize that energy flowing through you and there's suddenly a detour, it has a hard time coming back so that everything flows in unison, right? So this chakra specifically is associated with water energy and sort of that feminine, passive, beautiful energy, like a moon. It's just there. It's just glorious. It holds space, and it's just there. So with this chakra especially, we are asked to allow things to just flow and to go with the flow. And I think that's where most of us get into trouble, right?
Right.
I don't want to let it flow. I don't want to take the time. I don't want to just trust that everything's going to be fine, But generally speaking, a blocked sacral chakra can make you feel like you've lost control of your life. And I think that's sort of before this episode, you and I were talking where, if you're sort of blocking yourself and you're blocking things because you're trying to not allow the flow, you're trying to suppress something, you're trying to hold the energy back for whatever reason, and then you run into some trouble.
Right. You're trying to always just be in the head and you forget that it's down. We were talking about we always say listen to our gut, or your gut feeling, and you put your hand there, that's your sacral chakra. No wonder why we talk about that. I tell my kids all the time, if it makes your tummy feel funny, maybe it's not a good idea. And just how simple that is. And then when you look at all of these, and as I, do my homework on all of this, well, no wonder we do that, It's just an innate thing. That's where that part lives.
And you're so right, because we say gut and we sometimes we picture the stomach, which would be the solar plexus, but really it's, and the solar plexus is about the gut feeling. So solar plexus would kind of stop you from taking the action, but it's your sacral that I think you just kind of hit up on, where it's your sacral. That's where you put your hand. You put it more towards the sacral, like you put it lower or just below your belly button. And you go, ooh, something feels off here. Something feels like it's not quite flowing. This isn't, And I think that's such a good point, is because we always say, trust your gut.
Yeah.
And we assume it's the stomach. Maybe it's the intestines, really, isn't it?
Right. And just the different innervation there, but like I'm putting it right now. There, I'm at my belly button or below. Like that's what I'm feeling in my tummy. Maybe not, food wise, but if it's about a gut feeling, I'm going lower.
Yeah. I always love these epiphanies. So, and this is also known as the creative chakra. It's the dwelling place of the self and is filled with flowing, moving energy, like we mentioned. But the creative chakra, I found that really interesting because sacral chakra generally is, or not generally, I would say sacral chakra is the the energy center for your relationships, and that includes relationship with yourself, relationship with the other, relationship both romantic, within the family, within a friendship, relationships with coworkers even. um and it's that flowing energy and the creative chakra, and I find that that's somehow that feels really important, that it's also how you creatively interact with another. I never thought
Right.
of it that way.
Yeah, and I wouldn't, like, if I had to guess, like I wouldn't have associated like down in that area as like where
Yeah.
I'm creative, but it makes
I,
sense.
it makes total sense. And, and I mean, not to, you know, go too far down into this topic, but it would make sense if if it's within a relationship with another, romantic relationship with another. But I too was surprised when I, was learning about the chakra system, that it's your relationship with everybody else. And I think in that aspect, that is when it's connected to the root chakra. Um, in my mind, a little bit more, in the sense that root, it has to do with your foundation, your place in the world. It's sort of your tribe and how you feel that you're going to be received by others based on your tribe. So then in that aspect, it makes sense to me, but it's just full of
Yes.
surprises. So it's the
Right.
origin of all emotions, and it governs the body's liquids: blood, lymph, mucus, semen, urine, and saliva. Just wow.
It's just a lot.
Just yeah, totally. Um, so it helps regulate our emotions, our sexual center, our passions, fantasies, ambitions. It governs self worth, confidence, in creativity, the ability to open and be friendly to others. It bonds you to your loved ones. And I find that the thing that, when I hear those words, the thing that I think of is your movement and dancing and just the expression with your body. um like if you jump up to the solar plexus, it's your action, it's what you're going to do, but this one is more about just representing yourself with your body, and I find that really interesting. It would probably also have to do with like your fashion, your how you present yourself, that kind of thing.
Right. And like
What,
I'm just
what
picturing like when you see somebody that's dancing really good, like a ballroom dancer, just really a good dancer in a movie, like you feel that energy there, you know?
Yeah, right, like your feet start to want to move a little bit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you
I'm,
feel
I'm
inspired.
not feeling that energy high or feeling that low. Like you can tell a good dancer that has a good rhythm when they're moving their hips and moving that area, you know?
Yeah. And this also, so this chakra is said to form between 6 months and sorry, and the age of two. And what I find most interesting about that is when you're little, you have this innate, not, I guess, need, maybe for lack of a better word, this innate need and this flow of creativity that you just want to express. You want to express it with coloring and painting and moving, and you dance around, and you're running around and you're exploring and all this stuff, and at some point it's almost like it becomes discouraged. You're asked to slow down, you're asked to be still, you're asked to definitely don't create with paintings or anything unless you're a pro. What I
Right.
mean? And really, at what point is it that the scribble that we made that got you know highlighted on the refrigerator is just no longer worthy of such admiration? What I mean?
Right. Or we feel like we can't, like, oh, it's not good enough. We just throw it away.
Yeah.
I don't know. We homeschool here at my house, so there's art happening and paintings all the time.
Uh-huh.
So we haven't reached that level, but it is, how, yeah, why does that get put on the back burner, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I think in the beginning, especially, and by beginning, I mean like in our childhood, we're so in tune with honoring our body, right? And surroundings nurture that. Meaning, when I'm hungry, I get food. When I'm tired, I
Hmm.
get to go to sleep. When I need to potty, I get taught and applauded, you
Right.
know, that I did this. And so there's this feeling of wellness and abundance and joy, and you get to play as a child, and you get to um, just be really creative with the outlet for how you express your creativity. And then for some reason it starts to get stifled, and notice that that's when potentially imbalances start. Jimmy, because suddenly you're not really listening to your intuition as much because everyone's telling you that no, that you can't do that. Your creativity, well, you can't draw right now. Right now, you have to go do this other thing that you probably don't want to
Right.
do. And I feel, and I feel like I can look back on my life in this even. It's like self-confidence starts to plummet.
Right. Because you're doubting, right? The doubt sets in, like, I'm imagining, like, thinking more with my brain than with my gut
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
at that
Yeah.
point, you know.
Yeah. You start applying what you've learned rather than what you innately want to do.
Right. Because I even, as you're talking about a kid creating and expressing themselves, even with their clothes, even at, young age, their preference to want to wear certain things that you're like, you're going to wear that out. Okay, go ahead. But
And there
even
you
their,
are, hand in hand with Spider-Man.
yeah, but even like
Yeah.
a baby's posture, right, has that belly, we love like a baby's belly. But
Uh-huh.
again, that goes back to, okay, that belly, that's the sacral chakra, that's that. And then as they get taller, right, they lose that baby belly that was holding all of that creativity and stuff. So it just kind of, I keep picturing that right now as you're talking about the different parts.
Hmm. That's such a good point. Yeah, because then we start paying attention more and more to body image,
Right.
which also would be in some way stifling that natural flow of energy through you,
Yeah.
because suddenly the baby belly becomes a little less cute to you
Right.
based on, kind of what you've been taught. But you also have movement, you're also expressing things in other ways. So hopefully what's
Yeah.
happening is the baby belly transforms into
Yes.
actual movement with your
Catching up
body.
with your body, catching up with itself. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So, let me see. So, a balanced chakra leads to connection with intuition, creativity, sharpness. I love that. Self confidence and sexual confidence, which I think is also worth discussing a little bit. Is it's this then leads to the awkward puberty phase where you get embarrassed in front of whoever, like you get embarrassed for the weirdest things. Do you know what I mean? Like I remember once being in the supermarket with my mom and I saw this cute boy and I blushed so hard I couldn't even, and like nothing was happening. Nothing was happening at all. But for me, I had this traumatic experience and there was no interaction, there was nothing. It was just that moment where everything is you're trying to make sense of the world.
Right. Oh man, I could just imagine there, you can't hide anywhere either, and you just
You
have to
can't,
be
yeah.
red with embarrassment.
And I feel like at that stage I was probably purple. I mean, I could still
Right.
visualize the heat in my head. you know? Um, oh my gosh. So the adrenal glands are governed by the sacral chakra, which produce hormones that activate the body under stress, being in the fight or flight mode, and that response can affect this chakra. What do you think
Right.
about
And
that?
all of us have been pretty much living in that feeling for a long time with
Yeah.
everything that's in our world. And I can imagine all the adrenal fatigue that people are experiencing it is, or how it's manifested in their bodies. Um, so it's interesting that that's also connected with that.
I mean, you bring up a good point because I think a lot of conversations I've been having lately, everyone's sort of thinking about, well, just the past few years, but really, it's been a long time. because you go through school and you're stressed trying to finish everything and do everything and keep up with everything, and then you get into the workforce and there it is again, that
Right.
pattern of trying to keep up with everything and how do I squeeze everything, and responsibilities and whatever. So that's a good point. You end up with potentially adrenal fatigue.
Yeah, because we don't, everybody has some FOMO, but now, I'm glad that there's the term, the JOMO, the joy of missing out, that maybe we can all relax and not be so tired anymore.
That's a beautiful expression. I've never heard that one.
Yeah.
So in terms of, I mean, we've got a lot more to cover, but in terms of what we've covered so far, how does um, the work that you do, the chiropractic care, how would chiropractic care be able to aid in this kind of stuff?
Right. So, like, getting ready for this, like, we don't in chiropractic school, well, at least where I went, and I'm assuming this might still be the same and I could be wrong. We don't learn about chakras, right? We don't learn about these other things. But looking through all of this, it's just crazy interesting to me how it's all connected.
Yeah.
And the developer of chiropractic was into kind of all these alternative things. So now it's like, oh, all kind of the dots are kind of being connected, right? He was into magnetic healing, and my journey lately of looking into this, the layers of how it works. We have our nervous system, then we have this chakra system, we have the endocannabinoid system, right? They all layer each other and mirror and work together.
Hmm.
Um, but for me, I guess, right, I'm working more on the imbalances because I'm trying to balance that. So where the root or the sacral chakra would be right at the umbilicus, the belly button, right? Those
Yeah.
are um, L3, L4. So those are the vertebral levels. And those
Hmm.
are the nerves that innervate the sex organs, the uterus, the bladder, the knee, the prostate gland, muscles of the lower back. So when I think about this, I think about maybe potential patients or people that I've interacted with that maybe are having some fertility issues, are having I deal with a lot of pregnant women. So like if it innervates the uterus, if you know things going on in their pregnancies, um, and just realizing that my work in working on those spinal levels, if we talked about this as well in terms of the chakras, we could potentially uncover more things to help balance it, right? Not just
Right.
with
Yeah.
the adjustment, not with just the stretches, not with just the things that I do in the office, but how can we care for this outside of the office to go hand in hand?
Yeah. And I mean, the chakra system also, rightly, like you mentioned, it's usually associated with organs as well as nerve bundles in the body. That's another reason why it's called energy centers. So exactly how you said, it's, if people go, oh, well, it's chakra, whatever the word, but really it's associated with a part of your body that you can then
Right.
maybe deal with.
And as a
My
chiropractor,
protector is over here barking, so I
right? I
apologize.
and I'm picturing how tiny he is, so it just makes it even funnier. Um,
Yeah.
and my
Yeah.
big giant dog is just snoozing right next to me. Um,
Yeah. The tinier, the more protective they are. I feel
right.
all 6 pounds of them. Anyway.
um, right. Like as a chiropractor, we adjust the spine, but we're really, in fact, working with the nerves and the nervous system and how those nerves innervate the body. And we want those nerves to innervate the body like they're supposed to, right? With no blockages, nothing in there, so that your life force, right, can
Yeah.
be in flow. Um, so yes, we've got a great rap for, headaches and back pain, but it's really the nerves that we're affecting. We're looking at the spine as it correlates to the nerves because that's the area that we can palpate and touch
Hmm.
and adjust. But it's really taking a look and seeing at the spinal level or the nerve level, like where do we need to add more flow? Is there too much, and having that balance.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I mean, since you said too much or where we need to add, I'm just going to have a peek here at all our notes, and read off some of the ways that we can um, notice if this chakra is out of balance. So see what gets triggered by this. So the first way that I generally know that that something's off is clumsiness and accident prone movements. and and I usually, and it doesn't mean that your chakra's out of whack. It doesn't mean that everything's, but it could just mean, oh, I probably need to just kind of pause for a second and see what's happening. So connect with yourself, and just kind of see. Also is shame, remorse, depression, and poor boundaries. um, and I feel like that's a little bit of how we of what we already discussed, where it's that you're kind of stopping the flow of energy because you're unsure about how you're going to get received in the world. It's the blushing story,
Right.
because you're sort of like, oh, I don't know what my boundaries are, I don't know where I should be embarrassed, I don't, ah.
Right.
Next one would be lack of energy. So if you're feeling just a bit lethargic, it could quite literally be that either the hormones in the area are out of whack, but something's not flowing. um, I mean, let's just pause there. Do you notice that within your practice, the lack of energy that can be?
Yeah, and because I was even looking at
Or,
my notes, like noticed like immune system, lower GI, right? So like if
uh-huh.
our gut is there, and our gut is our second immune system, right? Like I could see how you would feel sluggish if that's not all flowing well, right? If the intestines, if those areas are working so hard, you're gonna feel run down, and probably in a way that's not like, oh, I'm tired, I didn't sleep well, but
Hmm.
that like pure, like my energy, there's like a switch was turned off, and
Yeah,
you're feeling low.
that's so true. And just the way you said that, I'm reminded. I feel like I covered this in the solar plexus chakra episode, but when I do guided meditations, but also meditations for myself. And I set this intention in the morning. I do something called shielding, and I'm happy to put a little link for what I'm even talking about here in the show notes. But essentially, I'm putting a protective bubble around myself made of my own energy so that I don't leak energy towards others, and others don't not only gift me their energy without knowing it, so I don't
Right.
suck anyone else's energy away, but they don't take my energy to the point of depletion either. So that does not mean that you stop the flow of love between one person and another. It doesn't mean that you don't interact with these people. It just means that my energy is mine, your energy is yours, and we respect that we need it to fulfill ourselves, right? You put the mask on yourself before you put it
Right.
on others in a plane crash, right? We all know that. So a lack of energy in this chakra would result in also you not having enough energy to flow into your solar plexus, and that's the chakra that floods your auric field, and that's the energy that you need in order to interact with others. And I find it interesting that you mentioned it like that, because that could also, from a etherical or
Right.
spiritual point of view, that could also be reflecting in that of I just feel drained, and and it could literally be because the chakra's out of whack, or you've got some sort of an energy leak. You're just giving all your energy away to honor someone else's needs without paying attention to yourself. And I am not at all referring to babies, and
Right.
that you have to give energy to your children, because that is what you're there for.
Yeah.
But that's a very different type of giving of energy, or rather sharing of energy, than if you go into a room and you just go, oh
Right.
my gosh, I'm so depleted being there. I sometimes feel
Right.
that way at the supermarket,
Right.
because
And
everyone and anyone's going there after
it's a
whatever day
different
they've
kind
had.
of tired. Like it's just
Yeah.
a tired that you maybe can't. Yeah, it was funny that you're talking about like taking of the energies, because before this I did a human design thing with a friend, and my sacral chakra is the one that's like the most active. But
Yeah.
she was talking
I
about the
love that.
other chakras, or the other parts that are not, because they're not called chakras, but they're kind of related. You can kind of like, I can like, I think yours was, we talked earlier, like the throat one was
Yeah. My
colored for
throat one
you.
is just defined.
But and mine is not colored in on the throat one, but that like I could borrow, or I'm able to, with my human design, borrow your throat chakra energy, right? And like
Uh-huh.
appreciate that and feel what you feel in that area, but then also like give that back to you and be like, that was
Oh
a great
yeah. Uh-huh.
experience. and now
Yeah.
let's move on, and you don't realize it. I think when I first started practicing chiropractic, I didn't realize how much energy
Yeah.
it took to work with on people and, with them, because, obviously it then turns into like a therapy session, right? As I'm working on
Right.
them.
Yeah.
And I spent the first few months of practice like sick all the time, and I didn't know what it was until I realized, it's the energies, and I have to be mindful of how I take in and let go of that, so that I don't take that home all the time and go home
Yeah.
depleted. And again,
Depleted.
something I didn't learn in school, but like
My
experience
protector is
after,
overactive because there's a
right?
massive truck apparently that's gonna come barreling through my front door. So I apologize for that.
It's
Go
okay.
ahead.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I like, again, something I said that I didn't learn in school, but that I learned after, to like pay attention to,
Yeah.
like innately, like, oh, I have to, it's this energy, because it was a different kind of tired or a different kind of feeling sick than a cold or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. True. Oh, he's just on a roll now. Wonderful. That truck really set him off. Well, and I think in human design too, they call it that is don't they use the word influence that energy center can be influenced?
Yes, yes, I think so.
I mean influence. I mean, yes, I get, but the word that I like, which you said was almost like you borrow it and then you give it back. It's almost like
Yeah.
you sample it.
Yeah, like you can have that experience and be excited or feel that feeling that you're feeling,
Hmm.
but then okay, that exchange is over between us. Your
Yeah,
throat, and I'll take my sacral, and we're gonna go be our
be
energetic
who we are.
selves up
Yeah,
here. Yeah.
I love that. I love the way you said that. Yeah. um. So another thing that's associated with an imbalance in this energy center is jealousy, disgust, and fear. I find that really interesting. Um, Jealousy, I can understand. Disgust, I guess. Fear surprised me on this one. I guess again, it's the interaction with another, meaning something outside of yourself. And if you don't quite understand it, I think the human nature response is to be a little bit cautious of it.
Right. And then I imagine how I feel when I'm truly scared, right? I'm feeling like in my stomach, oh my gosh, this is scary.
Oh,
And
that's
so
true. That pit
I
in your stomach.
yeah, I
Oh,
can see where that
oh, just
that
so
connect.
fascinating. Yeah.
I know, I feel like
Um,
I pause because I'm thinking about like, wow, that was so interesting, and like what other
yeah.
questions do I have? So
Totally. And each time I go over it with someone, I find new levels of understanding, like it lands differently.
yeah.
Um, so if we keep going down this list, urinary issues, constipation, I feel like that one just makes innately sense based on everything that we've said.
Yeah, yeah,
Lower back pain, I feel like that's what you've touched upon in
yeah.
joint problems. Sexual dysfunction.
Mhm.
Um, do you have anything else to say about that?
Yeah, kind of like just, with infertility stuff, I would feel like that kind of all connects together. A lot of times it's the woman that's coming in for infertility thing, but it's like, okay, also your partner should come in as well,
Uh-huh.
um, to see, to get, to get aligned too, so that everybody's working in harmony together, right? Your energies are working together. Again, not that chiropractic's fixing infertility.
Yeah.
Um, but if those nerves that innervate those parts aren't working as they should, making sure that those work in, homeostasis with the rest of your body is a great place to start.
Okay. I love that.
Right.
Um,
Just like working on your chakra is not, you're not saying that that's going to cure your infertility, but if we can look at these things first, right? These layers that, don't take a lot of time and effort, that are non-invasive. That's
mhm.
a place, a area to start and then build upon. I think
Yeah. Makes
people would
sense to me.
be happy and amazed, at stuff.
Yeah. I just love what you do. So let me see. Another sign of this chakra being blocked. Actually, now we're going to talk about blocked versus overactive versus balanced. So a example of a blocked chakra would be if you're feeling emotionally explosive or not emotional at all. So it's that the
Mm.
emotional extremes, those tend to represent a blocked chakra. Now, you have to take everything with a grain of salt, right? Those of you listening, we're not saying that if you feel too much emotion or you feel
Right.
unemotional about something that this chakra is out of whack. It's more like if some of the lists that we're kind of going through, and to a lot of it you're going, yeah, yeah, totally, then this might be what you might want to look into. And it could be as simple as, just kind of look at it within yourself, or consider the energy bundles or the nerve bundles associated with it. Consider the organs that we're mentioning, and you can bring alignment to your body to ease the dis-ease in a variety of ways, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um so the block chakra again would be lack of energy, hard to find direction and motivation, emotionally distant or over emotional, poor social skills, fear of sex, lack of desire, self-denial of pleasure. I feel like the one though that I kind of that stumped me the most about this list is the emotionally distant or over emotional. Because do you feel like that would also have to do with when you are aloof and you just kind of unplug? Or I guess I should say and, not even or, but and, is that also a way of protecting this chakra?
Right,
How does
because
that land for you?
I feel like, again, like, then you're not in the right energy. Right now you're working from your head or like trying to avoid something, right? I would
Yeah.
think that it's might come up as aloof, but like if you really broke it down, then maybe you were fearful of something, or like you said, trying to protect yourself
Yeah.
by going in the opposite direction.
Yeah. That's that one definitely stumps me, because I do find myself, you know, in certain situations where I just kind of go, okay, whatever. And wonder if it's I'm going whatever and then being unemotional about it, or is that my state of flow? It's like a
Right.
constant question mark, Um, so on the flip side, an overactive chakra um, would be manipulative and addictive tendencies, detachment from others and their feelings, both people and objects, strong emotions, and can be obsessive and emotionally dependent on others, excessive eating, and unhealthy body image. Like, that's a mouthful, all of that.
Right.
Manipulative and addictive tendencies. I guess I could see that. You're trying to do whatever you can to get your own way. This dog is just on a roll. Go get him. Go get him.
And you, like you saying like overactive, and I'm immediately like, of course there could be an under and an over, right? Everything is always have to be in a balance.
Yeah.
But before you said that, I would never have, like, if you would have asked me if I thought a chakra could be overactive, I would have been like, no. But of course it can. So that was
I guess
just,
especially it can in relation to others, like in relation to your other energy centers. Does that
yeah. Yeah.
feel
And
better?
like it just all of a sudden makes total sense. Where
Yeah.
like 10 minutes ago, I would have like not have thought that. But exactly like right now, well,
It always lands
yeah,
differently.
it would
Makes total
have to.
sense. Though
Yeah.
if this one's like out of control, then maybe you're
So
not.
another place is not worth,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
And I know
especially if you're
that,
sitting there and you're like, I'm going to manipulate the situation, then maybe, and if we can kind of all sit back and think about this and be really honest with yourselves, if you're trying to manipulate the situation, what are you saying in that moment? Throat chakra. What are you doing in that moment? Solar plexus chakra. And, what imaginary things are you doing in that moment? Which third eye, you know,
right.
and you're certainly not usually coming from the heart if you're trying to manipulate something.
Right. And I understand all of that muscular skeletal wise, right? Tight muscles,
Uh-huh.
overactive, inhibited, overactive. And just I'm imagining like if I'm trying to manipulate a situation, right? I'm probably clenched and tight. But it
True. Yeah.
it just made sense energetically, like right now in this moment. Like, of course I believe that. Of course I like no accept that as yes.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to, but like, I
Right.
don't want to. No, no,
No,
I
but
never manipulate. Of course I do.
yeah.
Of course there's been moments, and certain moments I definitely revisit because I go, gosh, I could have done that so much better. And I have to practice that forgiveness of, okay, you could have done that better. Please do that better next time.
Right. And that's all we can do, right? Is ask ourselves
Yeah.
to do better next time.
I mean,
Now we
that's
know.
literally all we can do. Yeah.
Mhm.
That's literally all we can do. But it can, I can understand how, if you do get into those tendencies, how you can then lead yourself to excessive eating, unhealthy body image, because then there's that stifling or not quite sitting right with how you perhaps behaved in a certain moment, whether
Right.
it be like, gosh, I should have stood up for myself, or, oh, I can't believe I manipulated that situation, or, oh, I was maybe a little bit aggressive with my opinion in that moment, that kind of thing.
Right.
So in the middle of there, instead of on the flip side, a balanced chakra would mean graceful, lithe, flowing bodies. So it's more like going with what is. That doesn't mean you have to consent to what you don't want to do. That's not the same. It's
Mhm.
just, okay, well, I can't change the situation, so I can accept the situation and just release the point of contention with the situation. Does not mean I consent to what's happening.
Right.
And I feel like that took me a while to understand in my life, where I go, well, so what? I just have to do it? No, you just have to come to terms with the fact that it's happening, whether you like
Right.
it or not. And then you can take the necessary steps to, however you're going to respond to it. So a lovely little example I have here is, picture your dog or animal, going to the vet, and your pet is panicking as it gets close to the place, because animals always innately know when they're about to approach the vet's office. They just kind of know. Says you're walking in, the pet puts on the brakes, locks up their legs, sits their weight back. You end up dragging them to the reception desk. And so when you resist, it is sort of like you're getting dragged forward, kicking and screaming. It is like you're being dragged to wherever you want to go. And so, what is it that you're resisting? Because what we're usually resisting is reality. So just like we talked about, well, it's happening. You can either resist it, or you can flow with it, and you can decide whether you want to give consent to or not consent to it happening, therefore participate in it or not participate in it. Right. So it's that resistance to what is, and that we want things to be different. And then, you don't interact with it in the best version of yourself, I think would be a nice way
Right.
to say that. So you resist it, and then you perhaps partake in one of the other things that we mentioned, such as manipulation, addiction, that kind of stuff.
Right. Instead of
If you're,
just kind of reframing your perspective, right? And
yeah,
looking at it with a different lens.
well, exactly, yeah, because if you're resisting the truth about what is, be it your relationship, your job, your finances,
Right.
whatever you want to change, then you're resisting in dealing with that situation, instead of perhaps even looking at it differently,
Right.
because you're spending that precious time on trying to change what you are not able to change and control and fight it.
What you can't control or
Yeah.
fight, right?
So I think in this one, what I don't know if you've ever heard of Byron Katie. I'm going to put a link in the show notes, because I feel like she's got this beautiful thing. She calls it, I think it's called The Work. And it's teaching you how to look at things from a different perspective, so that you find peace with what is that you don't want to be, like,
Right.
so if something's happening that you don't want it to happen, you can look at it from a different perspective, so that um, you just kind of come to terms with, well, it is. What I think is a byproduct of it, which actually I think really helped me. I feel like I'm talking a lot, but what I said, but I want your input on this. When relationships or things in your life that you notice a pattern of, like, why is this constantly happening to me? That's when that was happening in my life, is when I found Byron Katie. And by looking at it from her perspective, and going through how she would look at a situation, and she's got videos on YouTube all over the place about this. Like I said, there's an app, there's all kinds of stuff, right? But so she has you look at things from so many different perspectives, that what inevitably happens is you find your role in the situation. And in that moment, when you're not fighting things and you are able to see your role in it, is when you're able to make a change. Because you can't change anybody else's opinion. You can't change the situation, but you can change your response to it. And if you can change your response to it, by definition, you change the, shall we call, side effects of it.
Right. And then gives you empathy, right, towards the
Yeah.
person or the situation, and like can probably calm you down and
You show up
bring you,
differently.
yeah, you bring your energy, and your perspective has
Yeah.
totally shifted, and you can, oh, I see the other side, or
Yeah.
I didn't expect that, right? Because we just tend to go with our first instinct instead of maybe to our gut, right? Is this really how we're supposed to, is there another way I can look at this situation? That's interesting.
It's very true. And just the word empathy, I guess I
Yeah.
didn't even, but that's it. You develop empathy for the situation. And instead of approaching it with anger or hurt, you're now approaching it from such a different perspectives that, I mean, unfortunately, what you sometimes find is like, oh, you know what? I keep thinking that this person did this, or this group of people did this, or whatever the case may be. It was done to me. But what you often find is, oh no, I'm the one doing this.
Right, right. It could shine a
Oh,
light on you, but also then that
uh-huh.
can help you just grow, right? And become
Yeah.
a better person. You can like maybe stop a pattern
Oh,
from keep
100%.
playing out. So,
Yeah. I mean, this is literally what happened in my life is I kept going, why is this constantly, with the tears? And then there was this epiphany. I still remember the moment like it happened yesterday. And I went, oh my goodness, I keep thinking, all this stuff. And this is when I started going, am I manifesting this? Like I
right.
could write the script for what just went wrong. And I remember going, so am I manifesting it, or am I picking up intuitively? And it was in that moment that, because I couldn't sort of make sense of both of those sides, that I went, oh, but that just means that I'm somehow responsible, which means I can change things.
Right. At first it's like a
Oh,
oh no moment. It's me. But it's okay.
so oh no
Right?
moment. Yeah.
I recognize it now. I can change, and I can do better now, right? With the information that
Yeah.
I have.
Well, you kind of can't help it at that point. You
Right?
have to do better, because you go, I can't do that again.
No.
Because that's like, how many times do I need to burn my finger before I stop putting my finger in the fire?
Right?
So you kind of can't help it. So I found this thing once upon a time online that took you through this little series of questions. And basically this part is called, what is the worst that could happen? So what would happen if you went with the flow? And the main point of that is, what is the worst result that you can imagine happening? I actually feel like this might have been a teal swan thing. And again, I'll put a link to her, because I feel like I owe her credit for this, because I love the way she put it, is, what's the worst result that you can imagine happening if you surrender to what is, rather than wishing for another reality? And in that instance, what are you trying to hold on to? And what are you giving up, and to maintain that control? And I feel like that was another aha of, yeah, like, look at all the stuff I have to do in order for this situation not to happen the way it's happening. That's
Right?
exhausting.
Oh my gosh. Like I was listening to some Wayne Dyer thing, and he was talking about how like it takes more energy. Like if you thought about it, it takes more energy to be a smoker than not to be a smoker, right? To be a smoker, to not smoke, you just have to say, I'm not going to smoke, right?
Yeah.
But to be a smoker, you have to like have the money to buy the cigarettes, to have something to light it with, right? To take the
Yeah.
time to keep them with you, to take the time to go out and find a place in order to smoke. Like so much more energy is put into that
Yeah.
than to just not do it at all. So,
Well, that's true. And
what's that?
especially when, gosh, he's just going ballistic. It's that sacral chakra is
Right?
overactive in this one today. It's
Thor needs to
also
be
that,
adjusted.
right. Yeah. And Thor does get adjusted. I bring my puppy to you, and you do your thing. And
Right?
I have to vouch that he used to have this. I mean, this is obviously a total side note in what we were
Right?
talking about, but he had this twitch when when he was a baby. You remember it, that he would
Yeah.
just, all of that's gone. He
Oh,
doesn't
yeah.
have any more of those. It was like
Thor.
a neurological something or other that no one could kind of figure out what to do with. And then I took him to you, and he
Yeah.
just, I love that. But what were we talking about?
Just like it took more energy, that about more
Oh,
energy
right,
in
yeah.
something, and
Yeah. Well, and even on that is again, what are you having to also brace yourself for? So it's not even
Right.
give up, and the energy is you have to brace yourself for the people that are going to tell you, please don't do this around me.
Right.
And now you have to deal with that aspect of it. And not
Yeah.
everybody says it so kindly. I'm very aware of that.
Right.
And that's true for any situation. So we use smoking as a example, but it could be anything. It could be, okay, I'm going to do this thing that I know I'm going to get backlash for. And it takes all of this energy to make this thing happen. And like, why am I doing it?
Right. Like if you
Mm.
just did not do it, what would happen, you know?
Yeah. And you could see, you could actually attach that to so many different scenarios, lies, how, anything,
Right.
right? So in contrast, surrendering to what is and going with the flow is about being able to take what comes your way, deal with the change, transition, release your rigid thoughts, beliefs, open up to more and greater possibilities than you can even imagine. And it's about finding the ease in every situation rather than locking up and being dragged through the situation. So, but I think I still want to kind of focus a little bit more on that does not mean that you consent to it. It just means that you're not going to resist it. It's going to happen regardless, probably, you
Right.
resisting it isn't going to change anything. It
Because
just makes it
also
more
too,
painful. Yeah,
isn't the
go ahead.
sacral chakra like your sense of self, right? So
Yeah. Uh-huh.
if you feel like you and you know what you're in alignment with, right, then you know what you can consent to or not, right? Like what you're going to give that. But if it's not in alignment, then maybe you're not knowing what way to go, how you feel, listening to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. There's just so much. So we're going to there's a little checklist, and if you find yourself as a listener saying yes to most of this, then there's a chance that there might be an imbalance. But first, we're going to take a small break for our sponsor, and we will be right back. All right, and we're back. So here's my list, and some of these I feel like, yeah, that's pretty, self-explanatory, whereas others I feel like I want to dive in a little bit. So question number one, do you feel often overwhelmed? So just a yes or no. If the answer is yes, then just you might consider that the chakra or something in this region is out of whack based on sort of what we said so far. Do you often experience mood swings? I mean, technically, this would also this could potentially correlate with hormone imbalance, don't you think?
Yeah.
Which would potentially be in this region. This next question, I feel like, is a little bit difficult to admit to yourself. Do you attract or thrive on conflict and drama? And I feel like that's where that Byron Katie thing that I mentioned earlier really comes in handy. Is that's the one that kind of woke me up at first. Of I kept thinking, how do I find myself in this situation that's just so painful and just constantly? And that's when I went, oh, I get myself in this situation because I do it because I already know what's going to happen, and therefore it's familiar. But I think that's a tough one, and you don't necessarily need to admit it to those around you, but just kind of be honest with yourself. Do you attract or thrive on conflict and drama? Next one. Do you suffer from poor personal boundaries? So this would mean you generally say yes to everybody asking you for whatever it is that they need, and your cup is no longer full to give from. I feel like that also could coincide with already what we talked about, which is that idea of shielding yourself and making sure that your energy isn't being drained towards others.
Right. And that's first you have to admit that you're doing that and recognize that that's what you're doing. And then you have to be okay with then now saying no
Yeah.
to the things. And that is really hard first to even admit that you're doing that.
Well, that's a good point, because in the beginning, what you'll probably bump into is some resistance. Like if someone is, I'm not going to say someone, because it could be when people are generally thinking that, oh, well, we'll just call Natalie, she'll do it.
Right.
And suddenly you start saying no, it throws everything off whack, right? What do you
Right.
mean? What do you mean no? you know?
And then I would be like, oh, okay, never mind. Yeah, sure. I'll totally, even though it
That's
is
true.
not
Yeah.
going to for me. It takes a lot of work to admit that that's your part of your problem. I'm just maybe speaking from experience here.
I think we
Um,
can all relate. Yeah. And it's true though. You feel weird because it's so weird to you to say no if you've always been saying yes.
yeah.
It's like, is that okay though? And
Yeah, like I think I'm
I'll make
gonna
it up
have
to
to
you.
say
But really,
no.
yeah,
Yeah. But I'll do this instead, right? And then you start to like, okay, well, no, but okay, maybe I'll do part of this, when you should just be like,
I don't want to.
no, I
Yeah.
I cannot. No, thank you.
Well, and again, we have to not we have to, but for the sake of this discussion, it's important to distinguish between I am saying no because it does not feel right and honoring that within yourself and saying no to things that you've already signed up for. Like today, I wake up and I don't want to go to work. That's not the same as I'm
Right.
setting personal boundaries of, okay, but this I can accomplish. This I can definitely, yes, I can accomplish this task. And unfortunately, I'm not able to get to this other one. That's very different. That's you setting your boundaries in terms of, I know I can finish this, but this other thing is unrealistic for me. That's very different than, nah, I'm not doing it,
Right.
or I don't want to go to work today because I don't feel like it. Well,
Yeah.
yes, you can take a personal day, obviously, but
Mm.
chances are you've signed a contract in order to be present at that work, whatever that looks like, and you still have to honor your contract. So,
Right. Or even then being so into saying no, right? You turn this corner and
mm,
to saying no to things that could really uplift you, right? And could be good for you. And knowing, wait a minute. Am I just,
yeah,
why am I saying yes or no and listening to that as well? There are times I've said no to things. I'm like, wait, why did I do that? Like that could have been so fun. I could have had a great experience, but I was too nervous or shy or scared or something.
that's a good point too. Yeah, because sometimes we hold ourselves back, and that would
Yeah.
also, based on what we're learning about the chakra, that would also coincide with this chakra because it has to
Yeah.
do with the image of you.
Right.
That's an excellent point. Let me see. What's the next one? Do you often experience feelings of shame, guilt, or internal pain? I think this one's very loaded because this could also potentially coincide with the root chakra, like I said earlier, which is your expression of tribe, meaning what you've been taught as acceptable or unacceptable behavior as your role in within your tribe. And by tribe I mean any kind. It could be your family tribe, it could be your neighborhood, it could be your group of friends, whatever it is. But what if you've kind of established a rigid role, I think that's an important word, a rigid role for yourself within the tribe, it does feel weird to step out of that. And this perhaps even coincides with what you mentioned of no but. you know
Right.
I'm not used to saying no, I'm going to say it, but then I kind of cave in a little bit, or
Yeah.
you know but I think it's important that you're just gentle with yourself and just be kind to yourself. Maybe you're not going to get it right now, but you're going to get it later.
Right.
Practice, 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 practice. Are you afraid of what would happen if you went with the flow? So that's kind of what I had already mentioned. What's the worst result you can imagine? What are you trying to hold on to? And think about how much you have to give up in order to maintain that control and stop the flow of what is, essentially.
Right. And couldn't that be like part of that like pleasure, right? You're not doing
Mm,
something that could just bring you ultimate joy and pleasure for just pleasure's sake?
that's true, yeah. Because you're embarrassed or whatever
Right.
the case may be, yeah. And that would, that one almost is a little bit more like on the nose. I don't know if that's the right expression for this, but on the nose for the chakra, because that is kind of what you would um, associate it with. You would associate that with that romantic partnership,
Right.
and not being able to surrender to the beautiful relationship that you're potentially in, and holding back and being too afraid to let someone know how you feel and let them know what your needs are, but you're in a relationship with them. And really, are they in a relationship with you when you haven't shown them all those parts of yourself?
Right. Like if you haven't shown up
Mm.
like
Yeah.
as you.
And that, I feel like that's also a giant learning lesson in life, because it is
Oh,
so much less exhausting if you just show up as you. You know?
Right. And we spend all our lives kind of hiding bits and pieces of us. And then
Uh-huh.
we're supposed to then now all of a sudden know how to do that.
That's an excellent point. We filter so much, and then you get into a relationship that's of a romantic nature, and suddenly you're not supposed to filter.
Right. But you've been doing it for how long?
Well,
So,
potentially you filtered in order to meet this person.
right.
If I tell them what I really am, then they might not like me anymore. And then
Right.
you have the fear of them leaving.
Yeah.
I guess for that, I also say, consider this. What if the real you is even more lovable than the facade?
Right. But all of that's practice, right? Because
Yeah.
you have to then practice being okay with showing up as the true you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. You have to practice. So, um, I didn't realize I took so many notes for this chakra, but we're going to get through all of them because I find this one so fascinating. And it's this one and the root chakra that really can potentially have a domino effect on the rest of your system, you know? So, questions to seriously ponder, and this is just ponder on them, is what is attractive to you? What repels you? What does it guide? Or, sorry, I don't even know what the heck I said here. Oh, sorry, how? How does it guide the way you live your life? So, what's attractive to you? What repels you? And how does that guide you? And I think that's a beautiful question to ask yourself because it really asks you, what do you like and what feels right to you? And potentially a side note, why aren't you following it? Because who's
Right.
better to guide you than your internal guidance system? You know,
Your gut. I'm all about the gut feeling. Like I
right?
just,
We tell our kids that all the time.
yeah.
Does it feel right? Then you should probably do
Right.
it, you know? How attractive do you feel? Are you confident about your self image or do you doubt yourself often? And with this one, I also, you know, people have mixed body images and mixed self confidence. But then I would also ponder the fact of, well, what would I need to do in order to have a bit of self love or a little bit more self love? What would need to happen? And I feel like that sometimes is an interesting concept to ponder because sometimes you actually realize, well, if I do this thing, oh gosh, that would probably make me feel all kinds, you know, feel better on all kinds of levels, whether it be go get some exercise. Yes, maybe because you feel that you need to lose a couple of pounds, but also think about the endorphins that are kicked in, that, you know, the feel good hormones. Think
Right.
about the strength that you'll gain from it, from, you know, your muscular response to things. And just overall, will that make you feel better about yourself? Chances are, yes, not necessarily because I'm saying anything about what you look like, but because you'll feel better. Those hormones do influence us.
Right. And we generally tend to, I'm again, maybe speaking from experience, put ourselves last and don't think about how we show up to love ourselves
Well,
because
that's
we're
true
so
too.
worried about everybody else and how we're showing up to love them.
Yeah.
But we never say, how do I love myself? Like we're, think about writing a birthday card to somebody. I love you because of this. Have you
Yeah.
ever like written or talked about how you love yourself? I think we need to do that more often.
I totally agree. I remember the moment I was trying to work on this because, and I remember, and again, I say Teal Swan because at that moment, that is literally who I bumped into, meaning I went online and I Googled it, you know, because where else are you going to start? Right. And it's true. And even at that point, I remember her or someone else saying that sometimes self-love is such a foreign concept. And when I heard it the first time, I went, I mean, is it? I guess. But now looking back, oh, absolutely it is. It's such a foreign concept. So, um, again, I believe it was Teal that mentioned, you know, what you can do is drink self love or drink love, which back then was also a super foreign concept to me. But think of something that you do love, be it your child, your pet, your, you know, some family member, whoever it is that you love, or even an object. I love this crystal, or I love, you know, whatever. And take that love as you hold a glass and you're infusing that glass or that water with the love. And there's been so many studies done on it's Dr. Emoto. Hopefully I'm
Right.
saying that
Isn't
right.
he like the snowflake or the water droplets with the
Yeah.
music and the happy music?
Yeah, and then the water crystals rearrange
Yeah.
themselves based on the emotion that you're giving them. I mean, they've done studies with plants in schools of this plant you say really good things to, this plant you say mean things to, and the one that you say good things to, the plant thrives. I mean, there's been so many studies. So think about if you put all this intention of love in a glass of water and then you drink it, you're literally drinking self-love.
Mhm.
And this brings me to another side note, which is um, singing bowls can accomplish this too, because if they resonate, the resonant notes that come out of them, especially the heart chakra singing bowls, is love. And if you're around a singing bowl or you have access to a singing bowl, you can literally play the tune. The tune will interact with your body, with the water in your body, and potentially rearrange themselves and resonate at that love frequency. So this might be a
Oh,
good
wow.
time to mention that we do have a sound bath coming up
Yes.
on March 8th at Full Circle Chiropractic
Yes.
in Long Beach, and I'll put a link in. um, but that's just another thing, or another thing to consider.
Right. But how easy it is to think about something that you love and drink some water, right? We all have to drink water.
Uh-huh.
And like, I didn't even think it could be that easy.
Oh, neither did I.
Right?
I remember
I'm
I
thinking
heard
of
that
all
and all.
these complicated journal
Yeah.
things and having to talk to myself in my mirror or something. But like, no, I can just think of something that I love and drink my water.
Yeah, and because I think sometimes even that, I remember I having those same thoughts. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to talk to myself in the mirror, but sometimes even that, it just still feels so foreign,
Right?
that putting the love of something that you already love, putting it in the water and then drinking that love. You're not taking it from the thing that you love already, except now you're
Right.
sharing it with yourself as well.
Right.
So I really Thor agrees.
Yes.
So the next question: are you often indulging in life's little pleasures to the point of losing balance? So almost turning the quest for pleasure into an insatiable obsession, or do you enjoy each experience in healthy moderation and self-discipline? I feel like this is also another deep question, because sometimes the thing that makes you feel good, we turn it into where we're chasing a high. And I feel like that could be done with anything. I mean, it could be done with spiritual work even. Well,
Right.
I feel better when I'm meditating.
So meditate all the
So meditate all day, which, I understand that to a certain extent, that is what we picture. We
right.
picture being the guru on the mountaintop, but is it actually reasonable for our lifestyle or even our life?
Right. Because everything in moderation, right? Like, my kids and what they eat, Mom, we're gonna have this. It's in moderation, right? We
Yeah.
don't do it all the time. We're intentful, like we have intent. We try. We do, a conscious choice. So that's a good one.
Yeah. And it's always interesting how many levels that can reach, because
Right.
you could turn it into an addiction to a substance or a person or a thing or food, and
Right.
not realize that how many broccolis heads can you eat
Right.
before before it's no longer pleasurable. You're just
Right.
um so basically, yeah, can you balance the passion with the personal discipline, and do you feel expressed in your passion for life? So do you feel like you um interact with your life and express yourself in a way that you feel heard? I think that's also another way of looking at this. And then, do you feel alive most of the time, or does life feel dull? I think that's a big one, because that I feel like that whole "does life feel dull," especially the past couple years, it's I think it's given us a mirror almost of where we have been just kind of going through life without really considering of, am I enjoying this, or do I need to make some changes?
Right.
And like realistic changes, you don't need to uproot everything. It's more like, what little things can I do to make my everyday more pleasurable? It doesn't even necessarily have to mean I have to change jobs. It just means, what little things can I do to make my time at the office something I enjoy rather than dread, right?
Yeah.
So the best way to balance our sacral chakra is surrender. Ay, that's a tough one. So be mindful, making right choices to curb unhealthy behaviors, let go of past emotional baggage. I feel like this is a big one too, because past, we dwell on the past a lot.
Hmm.
And if you're dwelling on the past, you're basing your future on your past. And when are you in the present?
Right. Shoving down those feelings down so that you don't feel it. Right. That's gonna.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the idea of being in touch with your feelings, but recognizing that you are not your feelings.
Right.
You can also choose.
Right. Change your perspective. You're talking
Yeah,
about that before.
choose your thoughts. Choose
Hmm.
your. In fact, I had a podcast with Barb from Beach Fitness, and she sent me a little link to to a little video, which I'll put on the show notes here because it kind of talked about it. Is you can choose your feelings, and we touch upon that. I mean, this particular little short, it's a little YouTube short. It talks about law of attraction, but I venture to say that the same thing that's talked about within this little short could be applied to meditation. You can't turn your mind off of things, but what you can do is introduce new thoughts and give your mind a little break from that repetitive thought you've had.
Hmm.
So that's I feel like that's not the same as like spiritual bypassing of no, I'm not going to look at any of the bad stuff.
Right.
It's more that sometimes you can dwell on the bad stuff so much that you forget that, okay, but I can actually change my mind, and if I can change my mind, change my perspective, I can look at all of it differently. And perhaps, and probably the most glorious thing out of that is that I can figure out a different way of looking at my perspective will change, and I will show up differently next time. I just love that. We keep saying I love that.
Right. I just keep like having these long pauses and going, mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, it's like teaching yourself new instincts, new basic instincts.
Right.
So diet and exercise, we kind of talked about too, is close association with the digestive system. So it's very
Hmm.
important to have a healthy diet and exercise and drink more water. And if only drink more water because you can infuse it with love and drink love all day.
Yeah.
And how beautiful is that? But again, it's that diet and exercise, your foods, just like Barbara talked about in that previous podcast, it can have an effect on your sugar levels, therefore your emotions, everything gets out of whack. And, next thing you
Right.
know, you're having this over emotional experience. And when you stop and look, nothing's happened.
Right.
And I think we can all attest to that. Sometimes we have this, but this happened. And then you realize, actually, it's really not that big of a deal.
Right.
And then sometimes it is a big deal, but if everything is looked at as a 10 in terms of urgency, then what's a 5? What's a 4,
Right.
um, so another thing for this chakra is to encourage more play. So be it dancing or drawing or just even, build a Lego set, whatever it is, it's just play. And then opening up the hips. So opening hip opening yoga poses like the butterfly pose, pigeon pose, squats, sun salutations, twists, like twisting triangle. Those are fantastic for this chakra. And then pay attention to your surroundings. So if your chakra is underactive, surround yourself with the color orange. If it's overactive, surround yourself with the opposite color, which is blue. And try to be around water. There's that water again, huh? Water is just so cleansing. Do you find yourself just taking more showers when you're stressed? Do you, do you get to do that? Like,
Well,
I know.
after therapy, I definitely have to shower because I just sweat the entire time. So maybe it is my body telling me to just cleanse all of that stuff I just got out.
Oh my gosh. But it's true. Like, yeah, all these things you want to shower after exercise, but really, sometimes you just want to be in water. So go for a swim, surround
Right.
yourself with water.
Or I find if I'm having a hard time, I want to go to the beach and just put my feet in the sand, let the water hit my feet and
Uh-huh.
ground a little and kind of bring me back to center.
Yeah. Water is so magical. And water, water just, I feel like it holds knowledge, like holds memories in the crystals. And we'll get into that another time.
Right.
But so in terms of how to balance, continuing on with energy, aromatherapy, yoga, meditation, color orange or Tai Chi, Affirmations for this would be, I enjoy life fully. I think my favorite one is, I flow with life, or I flow with what
Mm.
is. So I think I used to have, not I think I used to have a few years ago a mantra that I did, but mostly it was whatever the thing was that I was struggling with. So for this purpose of this example, let's say it's finances. The mantra would be, um, financial abundance flows to me and through me.
Mm.
And that would be the mantra of, it's not like it comes to me and then dead stop.
Right.
It's, I allow the energy to flow, and therefore there is no stagnation. I'm not hoarding anything. I just know that there's always going to be more, and therefore I can use what I have. And then it's in this perpetual cyclical flow through me. And I did notice a massive difference in doing that. So again, it could be with anything, love, finances, um, your job, whatever that magical word is, but flowing to me and through me, I think, is the main thing. Cord cutting meditations. Cord cutting would be more associated with what we talked about earlier, where it's making sure that you're not draining your energy to others. And I think we could totally go into this a lot more, but just look up cord cutting meditation on YouTube. There's so many of them, and basically the meditation guides you to the situation, the person, the place, the thing, whatever is just kind of hooked onto you and siphoning off your energy to the point that it's not healthy for you. And I will kind of leave it at that, because that could turn into another hour conversation. The healing the shame energy within you, and then judging guilt in others. So if you find yourself, you're judgy wudgy, just have a look at that, because usually it's a reflection of you. Bum bum bum.
Right. Again, it's
Yeah,
all to
it's
turn the
constantly.
camera around.
I know. So if you're feeling rigid and holding a lot of resistance, you can support the root chakra. But if you're feeling overly sensitive and without boundaries or containment, then support your solar plexus chakra, so that that energy is encouraged to flow through you rather than get stuck somewhere. So always ask yourself, how can I feel ease right now? What can I do? What's happening? So there's another Abraham Hicks visualization, and they mentioned this was, live your life like a canoe on a river, navigating and flowing with the river downstream with little self-imposed resistance. So with a canoe, you're not going to head upstream, you're going to head
Right.
downstream, and it's gonna, it's a lot less painful, a lot less work. You just head downstream. Um, so let's see. As far as exercise is, focus on exercise that activates the prana. So the um, um, gosh, how do I say this? Uh, it's situated at the physical body's central axis, so center of gravity. So just kind of visualize again that energy flowing through you rather than getting stagnant anywhere. I think that's the best way to say that. And foods to balance this. Are you ready for these foods? Because some of these I feel like are a little surprising. So oranges, melons, coconuts. I thought this one was kind of weird. So it's like more nuts, tropical fruits, fish, and seafood. But I would have thought it would have been like oranges, because it's orange.
Right.
Melons, coconuts. That one stumped me. Mangoes, peaches, orange peppers, apricots, sweet potatoes, salmon, and foods rich in omega-3 fatty acids. And I'm guessing because fish flow in the water.
Right.
Essential oils would be like flowery, citrusy essential oils like oranges, rose, bergamot. There's also ylang ylang, which is a flower, jasmine, but even sandalwood. So even some that are a little bit more grounding. And there's plenty more. And then in terms of stones and crystals you can connect with would be amber or citrine, orange calcite, tiger's eye. I love that one. Emeralds or other green stones, and that's to calm that chakra right down. And that pretty much brings us to the end of my notes. What did you think about that? Did anything else kind of
Oh my
come
God.
up for you?
Well, I have a question, and this probably will open up another can of worms, which we can do later. But is the goal to have all the chakras balanced? Like all of us have all the chakras active. Maybe I'm using the wrong words. And the goal is to have all of them balanced, because I'm now just thinking, okay, did the human design thing, and I only have two spots that are lit up and my other ones are not as active. So it, I know that it's different from the chakras, but is the goal, the ultimate goal, right, with work and whatever, is to
Mhm.
have them all balanced, or will, depending on where we are in life, some be more active than others? Like what is our goal for our chakra?
I mean, with respect to human design, I'll get to that at the end of this, but yes, the goal is to be working in balance with your
Okay.
chakra system. And the reason for that would be that where would you be okay with the energy getting caught? Do you know what I mean? So the
Right.
idea is that you're coming from the earth up into the heavens, right?
Right.
So your higher chakras have to do more with your intuition, your connection to the divine, getting those intuitions on, the way forward in whatever it is that you're trying to do, whether it be something that's creative or work related, or there's a problem or whatever. You want
Okay.
that higher guidance, you want that internal guidance system to go, yep, this definitely feels good. You want to be able to speak freely, in terms of being able to express yourself in a way
Okay.
that feels most authentic to you, and using the right. And right is a bit of a, in an parenthesis, not parentheses, in,
Right. Air quotes.
thank you, in air quotes, is that you're using the right words to express what you're trying to say,
Okay.
to minimize miscommunication, which means you're also hearing, right? And then
Right.
from coming up from the earth, you have that grounded feeling. So you're not just off with the fairies, as the saying goes, meaning
Right.
you're so up in the higher realms that you forget that you're still having a human experience, and you're still here and in the world and interacting with other people, and having that sympathy and empathy for what they might be going through, which I think is a little bit difficult if you're sort of operating from
Mm,
heavenly guidance. So
right.
having that grounding energy, which is your lower chakras, and then being able to express yourself with others in a way that's authentic, that's genuine, that doesn't necessarily have a ton of manipulation, guards attached to it, all that stuff, so which would
Right.
be like cords. And then coming from a place of love, so having everything coming through that heart center to ensure that it's coming from your highest good, so your best foot forward before you express yourself, whether it be through words or movement or action, right? So in that aspect, I feel that we would want those chakras definitely aligned
Right.
and working in, from your best place, right? Now,
Right.
when it comes to human design, there are certain energy centers that you have defined within you. And my understanding of that system, and I by no means have studied human design as extensively to
Right.
do this question justice, but it is my understanding that there are simply some energy centers that you would be more of an authority in,
Okay.
right? And I believe that that's even the word that's used, this, here's your authority. So
Right.
you maybe feel a lot more, let's, for the purpose of this, use the word divinely guided. You might be a little bit more divinely guided, say from your throat chakra, like I am from my throat chakra, being a manifester in human design. And
Okay.
then the other center that I have defined is, gosh, was it splenic?
I think it was your solar plexus.
My solar plexus. So my action and my word would be where I am, um that's my authority, right? But it's where I would be guided. But the other centers, just because they're not defined, doesn't mean that you don't want things working in unison. It just means that
Right.
you are more likely to experience, in my opinion, like the group energy, and then
Okay.
work from that. That still doesn't mean that you now don't have to work from your heart or
The other
from
one.
your
Right.
throat. And it's still, in terms of your chakra system, you still want to, bring your best foot forward.
Yeah.
So
No,
hopefully
that
I did
totally
that
makes
question
sense.
justice.
Yeah, no, because I'm thinking, spinal levels, right? What I adjust, I want everything to be in alignment. Okay, my chakras, all of this, and then I'm, me, I love a good list. So I'm like, oh, these foods, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just the list for the sacral chakra. What are all the foods I'm going to have to eat to keep everything
Yeah.
like knowing that all of these things are layered upon each other, and that the goal is to be as in balance as we can, right, work towards that harmony,
Yeah.
homeostasis, all of that. So
Well, and I also feel like if we just look at things from, oh my gosh, each chakra we have to make sure that we get all these different foods for, and all these different colors have
right,
to surround us. It you can quickly feel how that starts developing resistance.
right,
You can quickly feel how you actually start stagnating the energy because you're not in free flow. So always, what I would suggest to anybody is trust your instincts, trust yourself. What is your body asking you for in this moment? And that is probably what you're going to need. Now,
yeah,
we want to do that with a, I don't have the word for this right now, but there's certain times where you're like, no, my body really wants these 12 donuts. Well, chances are you don't need the 12 donuts, and you don't even need anyone to tell you that, right?
right. But
When do you ever need 12 donuts? But like having that balance of, but I am having this craving, and have a look at it. Will a
right,
banana satiate that? Will an apple satiate that? Maybe I want a hot chocolate. Maybe I do want a donut. And then, you know, it's not even, I don't even want to use the word moderation, because then it makes it sound like we're just these, you know,
right.
aloof
But
robots of moderation. But
yeah, no, listening to yourself, and yeah,
yes.
like
Mhm.
sometimes I'm gonna have the donut,
And
and
be okay with it.
sometimes,
Yeah,
yeah, and sometimes, yeah, the I choose the banana and that did the trick, or I have the
totally.
banana and that didn't do the trick, so then I still have the donut,
Yeah.
and life still goes on.
But at least you're then asking yourself those questions of, what is it that my body needs in this
Right,
moment? And you're not doing it out of almost like a reflex.
right,
I want the donut, therefore I automatically reach for it.
right,
Just having that little pause of I mean, maybe the donut isn't even the best example, because then
right,
then it's all food related. But
right.
even,
Because now I want a
do
donut.
I want to go do this thing? Do I not want to go do this thing? Okay, just sit for a second with yourself and go, is this what I really want for me right now?
Right, just like we talked about saying yes or no to things, and
Yeah.
listening to that gut and all of that. So
Hmm. And there's
yeah,
some
that's
things
great.
where, you don't really have a choice. What you can choose in that moment is to make it a fun, pleasurable experience for yourself, rather than go in with
Right,
your, heels dug in,
right,
because if you think about, how do our children respond to every time we ask them to do something?
right,
Chances are they're like, I don't wanna.
right. But changing their perspective, right? We talked about change
Yeah.
perspective gives empathy. So all of these things tie in.
Yeah.
Um, totally.
Like, there's certain things that you just wouldn't force upon your child. And then there's certain things where you go, honey, I know that you don't want to. And, I don't necessarily want to do this other thing that I need to take care of, but we do have
Right,
responsibilities. And there's certain things that we do because it's for the benefit of our wholeness,
right,
not just, so it's not a punishment. We're not doing something that is in detriment to others.
right,
And we could dive into this further, because then
right.
there's always all these levels to it. It's like, I
I
don't want to
know.
hug that person. Well, is it imperative that your child hugs that person, or is it maybe okay if they just are polite to that person, say
Right,
hello?
right.
They don't necessarily need to hug the person. Find that
That
balance, and I think that
mhm.
applies to all of us in
Yeah.
everything. So, yay!
This was great.
I think that about
Yay.
wraps it up for us. What do you think?
Yeah.
So,
I think
yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
totally. I was just like, I didn't think that it would go like we could talk this much about it and have this much, and I still have more questions. So it's
Yeah.
amazing. I think we did a great job.
Well, thank you. I think we did too. So, yeah, thank you for joining us today. If you'd like to connect further, please visit www.soulhealingessentials.com. While you're there, be sure to grab your free chakra journal. It outlines all the chakras, and it allows you for an opportunity to meditate on each chakra, take notes, and see how you start relating to your chakra system, and maybe what evolves for you. You can find Natalie at www.fullcirclechiropractic.com. I will put all that in the show notes. For feedback on this episode, topic submission, general feedback on the podcast, you can email shetalks@soulhealingessentials.com. And if you'd like to submit a voice message to be used on future episodes, please go to anchor.fm/shetalks/messages. Thank you so much for joining us today. Until next time, bye bye.